Dum 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 dum. Dang. Hey everyone, Aaron Lovejoy here from Miniature Monthly. Welcome to the next episode of the Tank Paint-Along. In our last video, we applied our base coat. Now we're going to add highlights and some shadows, really bring this thing into focus. It's like bringing an out-of-focus picture back into focus. Alright, so we're doing a test fit here, and I just want to see how everything looks with the shield on. We kind of have our basic colors on there. This green looks really, really bright. In real life, it's not quite as bright. The camera just is really kind of blowing out because we went like crazy, super bright green. But it's looking good. So now what I'm going to do is we're going to pull back a little bit, and I'm taking off my reading glasses. I'm not going to worry about super smooth blends, none of that stuff. What I'm going to do is show you how to sketch in your final lights and your final shadows in a way that will give you nice, really good contrast and still look good as far as the miniature itself is. So to do this, we have to pull ourselves back. We can't be right up on the mini. And here we go. We're carrying over our colors from the last video. Secret Weapons Old West, P3's Iozan Green and Necrotite Green, and Vallejo Game Colors Livery Green. But we're going to add one more for our highlights, and that's P3's Menoth White Highlight. Now notice that each of my colors is distinctly different. If my colors are too close in tone, I will not get the contrast that I need. However, if they're too far apart, they'll be harder to blend. So here we go. Our light is coming down like this. Bam, so he's hitting right in that side of the face. So knowing that, let's grab some of our brighter colors. Let's make a halfway point color with our Livery Green and our Necrolite Green from P3. And we're just going to drop in colors like that. And I'm going to put a little bit right here on this one. And let's pull the shield off. So I am just dabbing the paint on, literally. There's not a whole lot of paint on my brush. I'm dabbing it on, but it's not thick enough to mess up my paint job. It doesn't look like thick paint. I'm just dabbing on little dabs of this color. I want that to be up here too. So up on top of the head, I think I'm going to go with straight Livery Green. This Livery Green is like the brightest green you'll ever see in your life. It's from Vallejo model or Game Color. It's an old ripoff of an old GW color. I'm going to start going back and forth between all my colors. So this is the Iozan Green. And I'm replacing some upper sections with it. I'm going to replace some of this area right here with it. And then continue on over on this side with the really bright Livery Green. Lick my brush off real quick and then kind of feather it out. And what I'm doing is since I'm back from the model, I'm letting the color tell me if it's bright enough or dark enough. I'll add a little bit more to the shadows over here with the purple. I'm actually going to add in a little bit of the P3 Menoth White to our Livery Green. I gotta desaturate this color a little bit just for the purposes of this video, because otherwise this is getting crazy out of hand. In real life, the green is not nearly that bright, but it's just really crack-a-lackin'. So, just kind of plopping in color where I think it needs it. A little of this purple back in the, I don't know if that's an ear or what, but I'm going to make it an ear. Sometimes I don't even know what the heck certain things are on the model. So it pays to take a couple moments, get on the internet, and look at pictures that other people have posted of the same model. Here's our very own Elizabeth Beckley's version of Tank, as well as one of the Game Wanderer's biggest fans, Mark Maxey. It's nice to see how different people tackle the same model. Put some more purple in the eye holes. This time it's just straight purple. More in here. If you get stuff outside the lines, just wipe it off. It's a-okay. That's really, really bright, so let's tone it down a little bit. Some of the Iosian green. I just made a little wash. Very thin paint, thinned out paint. And I'm just going to paint it all over. You can barely even tell it's on there, but it will start knocking down our color after a couple applications. Alright, I turned my light off from the very top, and I think that kind of helps a little bit. Let's grab some of our shadow color. At this point, our shadow colors become mostly the purple, purpley brown, and I'm going to do a couple quick glazes. I do little glazes like this all through the paint job. Also, pay attention to how many times I stroke a particular spot. Remember, I just reapply the paint over and over again until it looks right. Then I stop. Back here. Up on here. Between the eyes. Now I'll start doing some of our livery green mixed with the Menoth white. I'm thinning it down quite a bit, probably about 80%. And we're going to put it up just in the areas where we really wanted highlights to be. Basically what these thin down washes are doing is they're creating filters for us. And we're going to have to put on several layers of them, but it will do the job. Note to self, next time I paint a turtle on camera, maybe choose more drabbed out colors. Because this is crazy. Grab some of our darker color. Shadow color, move back in here on the arm. I'm kind of using the Iosian green as a kind of the in-betweener color to kind of knock down that green. It's kind of my filter, and even at full strength, it's still pretty see-through. Bring back in some of my highlighty color, the Iosian mixed with the Necrolite green, putting it right on top. Back of these eyebrows. I'm constantly trying to find my highlights and shadow areas and just put color in there. I can always change that later, but I just want to see what it looks like. Alright, so continue with some of our highlight color on that eyebrow and start moving some Necrolite green back into these. It's got like some horns or something. Something's going on there. On the other side, since it's more the shadow side, we go with the Iosian green. And if that doesn't show up, mix in some Necrolite green to that. And just kind of give them a hit. The upper side of those ears. There's a bit of the sculpt right here that goes in like that. So I think we're going to grab the Ionian green. Let's see. Now a good rule of thumb here is when you apply that color and nothing happens, stop and make a darker or lighter color. You're gonna have to pay attention and think about this at first, but after a while, it will just come naturally. I find that when I'm painting, I will apply a color and I instantly know, oh, I need to adjust this lighter, I need to adjust this darker. It just becomes second nature to you. That's not dark enough. So we'll make a mixture of that with our dark brown. And we'll just kind of place it in right where that is. Maybe in these other areas too. And on the back side of these. You see how that color is starting to come up. So we got some of the colors in by not wearing our glasses and not being super close. And then you come back in close, kind of tidy up. And you have makes for a very strong contrast. Much stronger contrast than I think you could ever have being super close to the model. So I think our mid-tone color, now our mid-tone color is really a mixture of the Iosian green and the Necrolite green in varying degrees of intensity. And what I mean by varying intensities of color is that you can take and make all different shades of color between those two shades. Trust your eyes. If when you put the color on the model, you see that it's a little bit off, if it's too light or too dark, quickly make an adjustment color. Also, when doing this, it pays to step back from the model a little bit. If you're right up close, it's very hard to see if the colors are right or not. Pulling away, you can quickly tell, oh, my intensity is right, I need more saturation, I need to desaturate my color, I need more highlight, I need less highlight, my midtone's too big, my midtone's too small. All these things you can tell by staying further away from the model. One way or the other. But that's kind of our money color. That's the color of this turtle. He's the combination of the two. So in areas where we want it to be more green, mid-tone, we need to put that color in. So I'm doing that here on the front of this muscle, because the top of the muscle is basically Necrolite green. Maybe a little bit of the Livery green. Now we'll start picking out a few little things, like lower eyelid. Let's do the front side of that. We'll do a little bit in the back. Same with this side. So got a little bit of the sculpt that's a little vein thing or something. It's His forehead's popping out right there. For these highlights, I'm using the mixture of the Livery Green and the Minoth White highlight. So I got a really nice bright color. And I'm putting it in very small spaces so that it looks really bright and gives me good contrast. Can you see how light my touch is on the highlights of this model? I'm barely touching the brush to the model. My paint is not thinned at all, and I'm applying it with kind of a dabbing motion, almost stippling in the highlights. Now, depending on how you want him to be, angry, happy, whatever, I think he's like kind of a really hardcore fighter turtle. So he's probably a little bit on the mean side, just like me. And so I'm going to have, if you put the highlight on his eyebrows more towards the nose, it makes him look angry, and if it's further out the other way, it makes him like happy or surprised. So we'll go a little bit towards the angry elf side of things. We put light on both sides of his nose, I guess you can call it, but we're going to put the brightest light on this side because the light's coming from there. And I'm putting in a little bit at a time. See that? Multiple brush strokes. I'm just painting the same paint on 55 times until I see it hit just how I want it to hit. And I stop. As we move back on these little horns back here, we're switching more to the Livery Green for our highlight. And we're putting it on in real small areas. Do the same with the other side. Okay, see how bright that color shows up in the shadows. This is the power of thick paint. You have the most pigment in your paint possible. When you thin your paints way down, you won't be able to build up color like this, not nearly as quickly. No more chalky highlights for you now. But as this side goes down, we're going to switch back to the Necrolite Green because we want our color values to change as for the different parts of the sculpt. So since this is the darker side of the model, it's going to have a darker highlight. A little bit more of the purple over here because we're going to start forcing our perspective here. Again, I haven't thinned this purple at all, or this brown purple, really at all. I'm just putting it in. It's already a little bit translucent of a color, so I'm using that to help me. Place it down the base of that muscle. I'm going to use the back part of my brush to help feather that. once I get a little bit of darkness down there, I can put in some of that brown just straight and let it dry. It won't leave a mark because I've already got a blend coming out of there. We really need to have a little more shadow right there. A little bit of that shadow right here. Clean up my brush, feather it. Take a look at it. I think I need a little bit more darkness down here on the side at the bottom of that crease. So we're just going to go for it. Put that color in. Clean brush. Sweep it away. And sweep it right down to where I want it. Maybe even take some of whatever's left on my brush. Put it on that. Put it on that one. Oops. If I lose some of my green there, I can always bring it back with one of my other colors. Down on the feet, I saw this a lot in our Dark Sword miniature female ranger contest. People just don't paint in between fingers and toes and all that stuff, so you got to remember to do that. You don't want it to be too dark, but at the same time you don't want it to just be not painted at all. So put some dark stuff right there with a clean brush, pull it up through the toe, maybe put some back here. That gives us our little shadow there. Come back in with our Necrolite green. I want this to be real. Now I'm painting all the way down on these toes because I'm not quite sure where I want the toenail to start. It'll probably start right here, but might as well paint it because it'll get painted over anyways, and if it doesn't, at least I've got it painted. Picking out each one of those bumps in that foot, and then over here, do the same thing. I kind of just dabbed the paint in. You can do that too. Dabbing is fine. I need to bring this color up a little bit. And the tips of the toes. A little bit right up there. Okay, on the back of the head, again, I think we're going to grab a little bit more of this Secret Weapon Dark Rust, or Old Rust, sorry. Okay, so remember when I showed you the meet in the middle technique and the paint literally ran out? I'm putting an opaque paint down, and as I pull back with the brush, the paint is actually running out. So my shadow actually changes color with the model. Put it on the back, clean brush, sweep it away. I'm going to pull up some of it into the creases there, but I don't want it to be too much, so it's a really good technique because you literally just are wiping stuff away and making the color go exactly where you want it. See how it went right up those cracks? Let's see what this looks like right up in here. Wipe most of that away. There, I'm digging that. See how we're starting to define those shapes, and that's super important. It's all done with tiny amounts of thick paint. So we'll put this on there. Pull it up through the eyes. Let's see if we like that. It's alright. We're gonna have to do another application of that because do it over here too. And pull it around right under the eye. Put it on the back and wipe it forward. The edge right back here. We're always pulling it forward because what we're pulling it forward runs out of paint and it looks like a smooth blend from dark to light. And it doesn't even matter that all these parts are bumpy, you just paint right over them. Come back here, placing the paint in this back corner. Clean brush. And we'll just wipe things to where we think they need to be wiped. I'm going to use a little bit of it. I can't even see the paint on my brush, but I see it wiping off on the back there. Starting to build up those colors. Now he doesn't look quite so freakishly bright everywhere. Putting that darkness in there really does help. I need a really dark line under this eye. So I'll apply it big and pull it around like that and then get rid of it. That's cool. Put some up here. Oops. Holy moly! So, kind of messed that up, but never fear, we just grab a little blob of our Necrolite green and fix it. So anywhere where you have little hiccups, little whoopsies, I think it's not quite right. Since all of our paint is relatively thick, or in its thickest state possible, I just kind of go back and forth between my colors until I get what I think is the right color. And let's do the other eye. Let's try not to jack it up. But you see, it's you're not necessarily gonna jack it up. So I saw that I had a lot of paint on my brush. Clean brush, sweep it around. That's that. Grab some of my Iosian green. Place it back here right over a couple of places I think look not so hot. Let's do the other eye. I'm going to do some of our green-brown mix. Place it right there between the eyebrows. Let's put a little bit more. I always put it bigger than I want, and then I push it back. Whenever we lose an area, like this eyeball, always be thinking about where my light source is coming from, so it's got to be placed in the right spot. Where you mess up, you fix it with the whatever color was already down there. In this case, it was the brown. Kind of putting a thin glaze. Actually licked my brush off, and whatever was left on my brush, I'm using as a glaze. That paint's really thin down. I grab the outside edge of the paint. A lot of times it's a little bit thinner than what's further in, for whatever reason, just the way that it is. Got a new size 1 Raphael, and this tip is legit. And you can see, since I've got all these colors on my palette, it's like a symphony. You just go back and forth between all of them. You have to place it on there, lick your brush a little bit, or switch to a clean brush, and do some yabba dabba dabbling. So this is one of the areas that kept bothering me. My first thought was to darken the area between the eyes, but that wasn't really doing it for me. The light was just wrong. Finally, I just realized the whole area needed to be bright. And just kind of blend out the side there. So you see here the two eyes. Since our light's coming from here, blank right like that. The highlight here, apex is off to the side here, but over here it apex is closer to here because the light's hitting that point more directly, and then over here it's hitting that point more directly. So those are important things to remember when you're painting. The lighting has to match everywhere. Same with that lighting hitting here. It's also reflecting the same way on that non-metallic metal we painted. It's catching the light right there. So if everything catches the same way, it's very believable. Ain't no thing, jelly bean. So I'm going to take a little bit of the Necrolite green. I'm going to make about 75%, 80% water glaze, and I'm just going to start glazing up on the eyebrow here because our highlight's a little bit abrupt there. Do it on both sides. It's a really bright color. Shouldn't really make it any brighter. If anything, it'll make it a little bit duller, but I'm also trying to smooth out that transition. Maybe I'll even put it on some of these other areas, like up here. Maybe I'll grab a little bit that's not thinned down, but what was on my brush was already thinned down. So see how I can kind of regulate my paint. If I have a thin down paint on my brush, then I grab a thicker paint, it will make a 50-50 mix of that. So it's one of those things where you really got to pay attention. Just really pay attention to your paint and the consistencies and what happens when you use them. And if color's not building up enough, you need thicker paint. If color's already on there, it's really good, but it's a little bit choppy. You start thinning your paints, but you use the same color or a color that's near those colors. So I'll grab my glaze again. I'm going to start glazing in up here. I'm always pushing the glaze to the center spot on my highlight. Again, that highlight is right there. There's a big old shield right here, so it's going to be kind of blocking a little bit. So don't worry about that. Obviously, we wouldn't have the highlight way down here, which in reality it probably would be more centered right there. But since that shield's there, that can't happen. So we're not worried about that. That's why it's always good to do a lot of test fits, a lot of test dry fits, whatever it's called. Now, if there was no shield here, I think this is about how the highlight would look with the light source coming from where it's at. But since there's the shield, it gets bumped up a little bit. Okay, some little areas that I neglected. There's that little nub side of his face. For those of you who don't know, this is a beauty mark on tortoises, tortoise. It has a smooth transition that comes out to it, so I'll kind of have the brighter green start going up that transition so that it looks like it blends with that. But see, that looks really good right there. All right, for this bottom lip, for the side that juts out and goes down, we need that a little bit darker. And grab some of our dark green. Place it towards the back here, and then it gets brighter as it comes forward. So we'll switch to the Necrolite. See, if you work quick enough, you can just blend all those colors together. I think we want to keep going even brighter. So right before it hits here, constantly be looking at it, make sure it looks okay. Your eyes will tell you if it doesn't look okay. At least I think they'll tell you. Pretty sure. Let's make an educated guess and bring up this side right here. I'm just putting little teeny tiny streaks right there. My paint's actually drying out on my palette a little bit, so I'm going to rehydrate some of the highlighted part. I really wanted to find that edge. I don't even know if it's going to be possible. I think I need a little bit more brightness right there. So let's put it on and see what happens. So I kind of put my thick highlight color on, placed it towards the back, and kept inching my brush forward with each subsequent stroke, always stroking towards the center. If something stuck a little bit too much that I didn't like, I just kept hitting it with the brush until it moved. Yeah, I dig that. Bam! Shazam! Let's give the feet a little bit more love. I'm going to black out these toenails like a boss. So you can see now why it was important to paint the whole toe green with my light, because the areas I don't hit are already highlighted and shaded. And all I have to do is maybe like do a little bit of a touch up. Alright, then on the fingers, I always like to bring my mid-tone color, especially in the shadow areas of the fingers, bring that bright mid-tone color around the top of them. And there's even some areas where you might want to, creases in the fingers. You can bring that color down, those creases. Right, the palm of his hand right there needs to pick up a little bit of light. Probably pick up a little bit of light up there. Maybe even between this. We'll make it brighter, just so you probably won't ever be able to see that, but if you do, it'll have a little tinge of color in there. And then we'll just switch to the Necrolite green, or the Vallejo Library green again. A little bit of our Midnight White base in there. I'm actually going to bring some wrinkles down these fingers. Just real thin lines coming down. I'm also going to use that color since it's sort of a whitish color, whitish green. I'm going to use it to make his thumbnails as well. Turtles have thumbnails too. There. And we'll put another layer of green up in here. Like I said, just in case. Just in case somebody checks. We'll do a combination of Library green and Necrolite green right on the palm of this hand. Put it right in the corner there. Move it forward down the line. And it gives us a nice little highlight. And then we'll do the Library green mixed with Midnight White. Put it right back in that back spot. So that just gives us that little bit of a glimmer of a highlight there. I'll do it right here as well. Put a line right in front of that finger. I'm always flattening out my brush to get it really thin. And I just put a little bitty teeny tiny highlight right before the knuckle, or right before the fingernail. Now we'll come back with some of our Iosian green. Clean up some of those blends there. I think we can kind of call it a day. The hand. I'm going to put a little highlight up here. Coming down right there. Give him a brighter color. And then we'll add some of this purple brown to the back side of the thumb to really set in that that's a shadow. Put it in the underside here on these fingers. Since these are the outside knuckles, give them a little bit of detail. So what have we learned today? Number 1, move back from the model. Being too close makes it hard to see the full picture. Number 2, color selection is huge. Don't choose colors that are too close together or too far apart in tone. Number 3, we learned when to use thick paint and when to thin it. Number 4, don't be afraid to look at other people's work for reference and for inspiration. Number 5, don't be afraid to use glazes all throughout the painting process. This helps to achieve smooth blends in the end. Number 6. The green I chose for this model is crazy bright. Number 7. I pronounced Iosian green, Iosian, isopropyl, differently 15,000 different times in this video. Number 8. We learned that the placement of highlights on the eyebrows can change the expression drastically on the miniature. Number 9. We paid close attention to the direction of the light source on our miniature. Number 10. Your eyes don't lie. When you step back and take a look at your miniature, you will know if it looks right or wrong. Number 11. I tend to use a lighter touch with a dabbing motion for my highlights and a heavier touch with a 2-brush blend for my shadows. 12. We learned not to forget to paint the shadows between your toes. Alright, well that's it for the highlights and shadows. In our next video, we'll do some hyper detailing of the skin and maybe doing a little airbrush magic, so stay tuned for that. Thanks again everyone for watching another episode of the Tank Paint-Along. We really appreciate your support. Stay tuned for more fun stuff from Miniature Monthly, and I'm out.